Cofagrigus is a coffin-themed Pokemon that was introduced in Generation 5. This mono ghost type with a flavorful and unique design unfortunately wasn't quite good enough for the power level of competitive singles OU in its debut game, but it was quite decent in the UU tier, where it functioned well as a defensive wall and trick room setup. When Gen 6 released, players probably didn't even consider Cofagrigus for their OU teams. The Pokemon's usage was very low, and it fell all the way down to RU in this generation. But many years later, as the Gen 6 OU metagame developed over time, something miraculous happened. Cofagrigus rose from the grave and saw a massive resurgence. Recently, Cofagrigus saw an unprecedented rise, not only in usage, but in the official Gen 6 OU viability rankings, where it climbed a whopping 32 places, all the way up to A rank. How in the world did this happen? How did this previously overlooked and forgotten Pokemon surge all the way up to a position above staples like Keldeo, Heatran, and even Landorus-Therian? Let's unearth this ancient tomb together and uncover the hidden secrets of the rise of Cofagrigus. Subscribe to the channel to prevent Iron Mugulis from shelving certain whistleblowers in the Goldango Investments Company. Their stories must be told. Thank you. At a glance, Cofagrigus actually looks pretty decent. Although it has a very low HP stat, it has a massive 145 base defense and respectable 105 base special defense. Mono ghost typing is quite good defensively, and Cofagrigus also has a really interesting signature ability, Mummy. This ability is effectively useless with no advantageous effect. However, if an enemy makes physical contact with Cofagrigus, their ability will be changed to Mummy. This is pretty much a way to remove an enemy's ability, which in some situations can be extremely valuable. Cofagrigus also has an impressive move pool. The main option Cofagrigus was known for back in the day was Trick Room. I remember seeing some Cofagrigus Trick Room teams on ladder when Gen 6 OU was current. Trick Room is a field condition that reverses speed checks, meaning the slower Pokemon goes first instead of the faster Pokemon. This effect lasts for 5 turns. Cofagrigus, with its great defensive stats and typing, very low speed, and a serviceable special attack stat, and even access to Nasty Plot to enhance its offense further, was a pretty effective Trick Room setter. Trick Room has always been a pretty inconsistent strategy in singles though. The effect lasts for a very short amount of time, and it's pretty easy to wait out the turns and outlast all of the slow threats. But what really propelled Cofagrigus to the higher ranks of Gen 6 OU were its advantages as a defensive utility Pokemon. The ability Mummy has useful applications against a lot of common threats. Pokemon like Mega Medicham and Azumarill are very reliant on their abilities. Pure Power and Huge Power double a Pokemon's attack, which is the sole reason these two Pokemon are used as physical attackers. Mega Heracross is another fairly common Pokemon that is very reliant on its ability Skill Link to maximize its damage output. But Cofagrigus can simply switch in against their attacks, and once they've made contact, their ability is now Mummy, and their damage output is gone. Effectively halving a Pokemon's attack just by switching in is really good. Cofagrigus can switch in safely against a lot of physical attackers, and spread its Will-O-Wisp from there. This makes Cofagrigus a really effective status spreader. Cofagrigus is also, randomly, one of the only good users of Toxic Spikes in Gen 6 OU. Not many defensive Pokemon in Gen 6 get this move, with Forretress being probably the most noteworthy alternative. But Cofagrigus has more defensive applications in the metagame and more useful utility than Forretress does, with its ability removal effect, a form of healing in Pain Split, and Will-O-Wisp. There aren't very many poison types in the format either to remove Toxic Spikes. Gengar still has Levitate in Gen 6, so it isn't able to remove Toxic Spikes. Amoonguss and Mega Venusaur are the two most common, and both of these Pokemon are actually pretty threatened by the Will-O-Wisp and Hex combo, so luring them in isn't even so bad. Cofagrigus also has the advantage of being immune to Rapid Spin, and having a good matchup against Excadrill and Starmie, the two most common Rapid Spinners in the game. You can threaten Starmie super effectively, and significantly cripple Excadrill with Will-O-Wisp, shrugging off its damage with your high defense as well. Since the enemy can't remove the Toxic Spikes with Rapid Spin as Cofagrigus is setting them, they're much harder to deal with. Excadrill is really common in Gen 6 OU, so Cofagrigus matching up so well against it has been a big reason for its rise. Common defoggers like Skarmory also don't love getting burned by Will-O-Wisp and hit with a powerful Hex. Another great option Cofagrigus has access to is Snatch, a really interesting move that was actually removed from Gen 8 onwards. This move will steal specific moves used by the enemy. The enemy will instead do nothing, while you use their move for yourself. Snatch can be used to steal enemy boosts, not only preventing them from boosting up in a similar way to Taunt, but actually stealing the boosts for yourself. And unlike Taunt, Snatch has priority, so the low speed of Cofagrigus is not a problem when using this move. You can even steal Substitute, which is really powerful, basically erasing their turn and giving yourself a free sub, which is a huge momentum swing. Snatch can also steal healing moves like Recover and Softboiled. Since Cofagrigus doesn't have a reliable healing move of its own, besides Pain Split, this can be an alternative form of healing and a way to deny healing from the enemy, keeping them low. Cofagrigus even has Knockoff, one of the best utility options in the game that can remove enemy items. In this tournament game for Smogon Premier League, the player Santu used a Cofagrigus on a balance team, and it performed its defensive role very well. Even after getting toxiced by an Excadrill, Cofagrigus was able to apply a good amount of pressure with its layer of toxic spikes, blocking a rapid spin attempt from the enemy Excadrill, using Knockoff to KO a low health Volcanion, and even using Pain Split a few times to heal itself back up. Santu eventually won, and Cofagrigus really helped out in the mid-game. Cofagrigus was also used in this Gen 6 Premier League game by the player Metallica126. Once again, Cofagrigus stonewalled Excadrill, preventing it from using Rapid Spin, which maintained Stealth Rock and Toxic Spikes on the enemy field, keeping pressure up. Metallica was eventually victorious. Metallica then received a taste of their own medicine later in the tournament, when Rose Villain brought a Cofagrigus against them in Week 5. Metallica predicted the incoming Cofagrigus, and hit it with an Earthquake, then landed a critical hit Earthquake, and managed to dodge the incoming Will-O-Wisp, but that still wasn't enough to withstand the coffin. Cofagrigus landed Will-O-Wisp next turn, and even though it fainted shortly after, it was preventing Excadrill from using Rapid Spin the whole time, and maintaining that Stealth Rock and Toxic Spike on the field was enough offensive pressure to enhance Mega Lopunny and push through Metallica's team to win the game. I really like the design of Cofagrigus. Its ability is flavorful, and it's at a reasonable power level with great defenses, but low speed and HP. Its utility move pool is full of awesome options to mix and match, but it is limited without a form of reliable healing, and no great way to cure status ailments. I think it gives Pokemon more identity when they're really strong in some areas and weak or limited in others. And a Pokemon like this rising up to fill gaps is a good sign of metagame health. Cofagrigus usage was quite high in the last SPL, and it is still a popular choice in the currently ongoing Gen 6 Premier League. Cofagrigus has become a new metagame staple, many years after the initial release of the Gen 6 games, and I think that's pretty awesome. Thank you to the patrons for your continued support, and thank you as well to everyone who has donated to the prize pool for this tournament.
Oh, KO by one hit! It scattered spikes!
The money got different, cause of what I'm spending.